Hey, Olive, Arlo, and Frank. Grandpop coming to you from the Bannigan underneath the Dames Point Bridge at the Faro Memorial. Very touching memorial for a ship that went down at sea in a hurricane in 2015, only 8 years ago, and 33 people lost their lives. And it's a befitting day to be going on to the part of the Bible we're getting into today. In the Net Bible, Reader's Edition, very, very good translation of the Bible. You always want to read a translation. I mean, you can get something out of a paraphrase of a Bible, but you want a translation, and you want to be careful even which translation you use. This is one that I highly recommend. Some of them are good translations, but they're in kind of an archaic English, so you have to deal with that. If you want to talk like you're in Shakespeare's time, go with the King James Bible, because it was produced in 1611, which was near the end of Shakespeare's life. He used a different version of the Bible, and I can't remember offhand what it's called. But I'm doing a series on Shakespeare, and I'll probably remember to get that in there, which version of the Bible, because he references the Bible constantly. Here comes another one of these trucks. Hopefully I'm not in their way. Today we're going to be looking at chapter 6 of Genesis. Now, in chapters 1 and 2, we saw the creation of everything, from the heavens and the earth to the planets and stars and sun, and which is a star, but to us it's a major light. It would be shining on us right now if we weren't underneath this giant bridge. And then in chapter 3, we saw sin come into the world in the Garden of Eden. And Adam and Eve partook of the fruit. It was what's called the fall of man. And then that played out immediately in chapter 4 with Cain and Abel. Cain killed his brother Abel, and God judged them for that. So today, and then in chapter 5, we looked at the descendants of Adam down to Noah. So we're at the time of Noah right now, and we're going to look at God's grief over the wickedness of mankind, of humankind. And then we're going to start to look at the flood, the great worldwide flood. I promised not to interject a lot of myself into this, but I do need to say right now that a lot of people think that this is complete myth, that there was a flood, but it wasn't universal, and it was passed down by word of mouth. And so the story changed over time, and then eventually people thought, oh, this was a flood around the whole world. I believe that this was a universal flood. As I heard somebody say one time, if this was a local flood, all the animals just would have walked out of it. The human beings would have walked out of it. They probably had invented the wheel back then. They would have rode their horses out of it. They would have had their carts take their family out of it. There's no way that you could have this much destruction with a local flood. So I believe that it was a local flood, and only the 8 people mentioned in these chapters survived it. And we're all descendants, we're all descendants of Adam and Eve, but we're also all descendants of Noah. You can believe what you want to believe. That's what I believe. I believe it was a universal flood, and there's a lot of things in life that you can explain if you believe in the universal flood, they're very hard to explain if you don't. But like I said, we're not going to get into that. Chapter 6 says, when humankind began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humankind were beautiful. Thus they took wives for themselves, from any they chose. So the Lord said, my spirit will not remain in humankind indefinitely. Since they are mortal, they will remain for 120 more years. So nobody knows exactly who these sons of God were. We know who the daughters of man were, but we're just going to let it say what it says. I'm fine with what it says. I think it's something kind of demonic. I believe that mythological gods from other cultures actually had some sort of a basis in reality way back when. And so, like the god Apollo, I believe there was somebody that was supernatural to a certain extent who evolved into that god in folklore in Greece. So I have no problem with this. And in that folklore, the gods, quote unquote gods, could mate with human women, and the women gods could mate with human men. We think that that's pure, I don't want to say fable, pure fairy tale. I'm not so sure. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also after this, when the sons of God were having sexual relations with the daughters of humankind, who gave birth to their children. They were the mighty heroes of old, the famous men. But the Lord saw that the wickedness of humankind had become great on the earth. Every inclination of the thoughts of their minds was only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made humankind on the earth, and he was highly offended. Now, it says regretted, but it's not like, oh no, I messed up. He regretted to the extent that he was upset with man. That's what it means. He's all powerful, all knowing. He's in the future already. He's still in the past. So it's not like they did anything that he didn't know was happening. But there's some questions that you're still going to be asking your entire life that I'm still asking. And that's why it's a blessing. I'm more blessed by going through this stuff again than you are. And I read through the Bible one chapter a day. But this is causing me to read one chapter a day and then come here and do a chapter every 3 days. So I'm reading a different part than I am in my devotions. Every inclination of the thoughts of their minds was only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made humankind on the earth, and he was highly offended. So the Lord said, I will wipe humankind, whom I have created from the face of the earth, everything from humankind to animals, including creatures that move on the ground and birds of the air, for I regret that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the sight of the Lord. So there's a certain amount of hyperbole in this, and I don't want to use that term, but I have to. I have limited vocabulary when it comes to these things. He said, I'm going to wipe them all out. But he didn't mean I'm going to wipe them all out. He meant I'm going to wipe them all out except for Noah and his family. This was the account of Noah. Noah was a godly man. He was blameless among his contemporaries. He walked with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth was ruined in the sight of God. The earth was filled with violence. God saw the earth, and indeed it was ruined, for all living creatures on the earth were sinful. So God said to Noah, I have decided that all living creatures must die, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. Now I am about to destroy them from the earth. Make for yourself an ark of cypress wood. So he's saying make a big boat, an ark. Make rooms in the ark and cover it with pitch inside and out. So that's like tar, the stuff that they put on roofs to keep the rain out. That black stuff, it's made out of oil. This is how you should make it. The ark is to be 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Make a roof for the ark and finish it, leaving 18 inches from the top. So, a couple things here. If you look at modern seagoing vessels, they're kind of shaped this way. I mean, if you look at other mythology from other cultures talking about a great flood, they always have a funny shaped boat. But this boat you can make this thing. People every once in a while make something and go like, this is what it says in the Bible. And they make it, and you could float this. And it's also realistic because there's a gap at the top so that it's going to rain a lot. It doesn't let the rain get in. The roof goes over it, but there's a gap so that, because there's all these animals in there pooping and peeing, and so there needs to be a way for that gas to get out of the boat. So that's built into it. Like God gives them the plan. Here, build this thing, and I'll fill it for you. "18 inches the gap was. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. I'm about to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy from under the sky all the living creatures that have the breath of life in them. Everything that is on the earth will die, but I will confirm my covenant with you. You will enter the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. You must bring into the ark 2 of every kind of living creatures from all flesh, male and female, to keep them alive with you. Of the birds after their kind, and of the cattle after their kind, and of every creeping thing of the ground after its kind, 2 of every kind will come to you so you can keep them alive. And you must take for yourself every kind of food that is eaten and gather it together. It will be food for you and for them." And Noah did all that God commanded him. He did indeed. So people say, well, how could you fit 2 of every kind in this big boat? Let's take dogs, for example. There's got to be 500 breeds of dog. But they're breeds. So back then, they probably had dogs. The breeds happened after they got off the ark. So you just need 2 of them. Chickens, you need 2 chickens. Although I think they actually have 7 chickens, because they're anything that they would sacrifice, they would have 7 instead of 2, but we haven't gotten to that yet. So they could fit it all in there. And we're going to see that they're on this ark for months. It's amazing. and that's our ancestor. I'm doing a little bit of genealogy work at the Jacksonville Public Library, trying to get back to John Hart and prove that my aunt was correct, that we're related to him. I can't get that far back, but I can get as far back as Noah, and I can get as far back as Adam. So that's the only genealogy that you really have to know. Peace out, guys.